Okay, good morning again. Thank you all for joining us here today. I'm Dr. Matthew Pluster with the University of Utah's Office of Fellowships and Benefits in the Graduate School. And today we're going to start the first of our series on Nsf-Grfp application preparation. So today we're going to go over the National Science Foundation Graduate Research Fellowship Program, providing you an overview of what the program is, what the eligibility is, what entails the application, and then some tips for your application success, some frequently asked questions. Then we'll have time for your questions at the end. And then we will have more specific workshops at the end of this month and into early July that will help you with some very topic specific concerns relating to the Nsf-Grfp. So what we'll cover today is, just as I mentioned, what is the Nsf-Grfp? What are the different benefits of the fellowship, the eligibility, and the different STEM fields of eligibility? And some of you may know that STEM education, social science, and such are included in STEM education here. And we'll go over this a little bit more finitely. The different application components, some tips and reminders about the application, and then frequently asked questions. Then after the presentation, we'll have time for your questions as well. What is Nsf-Grfp? Well, we could read this, but I'll just go ahead and summarize this statement from the National Science Foundation. It's the oldest federally funded graduate subsidization program, older than the GI Bill, older than Pell Grants and federal aid and such. And it is designed to help ensure the vitality of human resources in STEM fields across academia and in the industry. Supports outstanding students. This is something very important and unique about the Nsf-Grfp is it is not necessarily funding your research in such and such graduate program at such and such institution. It is funding for you. They are investing not only in you and your research, but your leadership potential. And it is to help students who are pursuing research-based master's and doctoral degrees at United States institutions of higher education. Fellowship comes with several different benefits. It's a 5-year fellowship that comes with 3 years of hard benefits of funding. And the reason that it's 3 years of funding over 5 years is you may be engaging in lab work. You might be a research assistant for a certain year to help you prepare for your own research or as part of your curriculum in your specific program that is required. And so you'll be supported by a PI in those situations. So you might want to save your Nsf-Grfp funding for the next year or the next year after that. So for the 3 years of tenure, which is the 3 years of hard funding, you have $34,000 a year, which is distributed to you in monthly stipends, tuition coverage at whatever institution that you choose to cover. Here at the University of Utah, we will cover your health insurance, as well as provide you with a $2,000 research fund for each year of tenure. So for 3 years, we'll provide you $2,000 to help you with your research expenses, conferences, different equipment needs that you might have. The Nsf-Grfp also comes with career life balance, i.e. family leave. And then you also have access to other professional development opportunities and research and internship opportunities as well in connection with NSF. Other very important benefits. So those are the hard benefits. Let's go into some other important things here. The GRFP is mobile. You can take it to any institution that is accredited and has the program that you are studying in. And we do have students who will start one institution and find that PI at another institution is more aligned with their research. And so they'll transfer from one program at one institution to another institution, and the GRFP goes with them. Occasionally, this can help as a step up in graduate admissions. So if you are applying for the GRFP as an undergraduate, and you're in the middle also of applying for graduate programs, as you engage with those graduate programs, this can help step up that consideration as well. The GRFP definitely does come with prestige and recognition. Out of about 12,000 applicants each year, about shy of 3,000 receive this. So that's 3,000 across the entire United States, and we've got about 3,000 institutions of higher learning. So it is very prestigious and not a commonly awarded recognition. This can boost your resume and your CV. And also, very importantly, especially if you are pursuing a career in academia, the Nsf-Grfp establishes a pattern of seeking and, importantly, getting external funding and getting grant funding to fund your research. To be eligible, you must be a United States citizen, national, or permanent resident. This includes citizens of Guam, Puerto Rico, the United States Virgin Islands. Unfortunately, this does not include international students. Enrolled or intend to enroll in a research-based master's or doctoral program in an eligible STEM field. And these are the broad categories: chemistry, computer and information science and engineering, geoscience, life sciences, materials research, mathematical science, physics and astronomy, psychology, social science, and STEM education. Now I'm going to go through each of these fields and what those subcategories are pretty quickly, but I will be posting all of this to our website as well. And it can also be found on the NSF's website for the GRFP. So in chemistry, we have included in here chemical measurements and imaging, chemical synthesis, chemistry of life processes, quantum information science, sustainable chemistry. And I also want to note that chemistry and these different subfields, as it will be for all these fields that we look at, this isn't necessarily what your degree is, what is printed on the diploma, but it is what your research is most closely aligned with. So you might be in a biology program, but you're studying the life process, but there's a chemistry component to it. You could definitely go down the life science route when you indicate your area of study, or if it's more of a chemistry heavy part of your research, you can note chemistry here. So it's what aligns with your research most closely. Computer and information science includes artificial intelligence, computational science and engineering, computer architecture, data mining, data science, human-computer interaction, machine learning. Machine learning is something the NSF is interested in across all fields of STEM. You'd note that in this particular location. Robotics and computer vision, software engineering. In the field of engineering, this includes bioengineering, biomedical engineering, civil, chemical, computer engineering, environmental engineering, materials engineering, mechanical and nuclear engineering, engineering systems, wireless engineering, and such. Geoscience includes biogeochemistry, climate and large-scale atmospheric dynamics, geobiology, geochemistry, marine biology, paleoclimate, petrology, physical and dynamic meteorology, etc. Life science includes bioinformatics and computational science, biology, biophysics, cell biology, ecology, genetics, genomics, neuroscience, physiology, etc. Material science includes ceramics, chemistry of materials, electronic materials, materials theory, physics of materials. Mathematical science includes analysis, applied mathematics, artificial intelligence, biostatistics, mathematical biology, probability, quantum information science. Physics and astronomy includes astronomy and astrophysics, atomic, molecular and optical physics, nuclear physics, particle physics, physics of life systems, solid state physics, etc. Psychology includes cognitive neuroscience, cognitive psychology, comparative psychology, neuropsychology, personality and individual differences, psychological or physiological psychology, psycholinguistics, quantitative psychology, etc. Social science, anthropology, archaeology, artificial intelligence as it relates to social science, communications, economics, geography, history, and philosophy of science, international relations, law and social science, linguistics, political science, public policy, science policy, etc. And it's really important with social science to, especially with particular areas like public policy, political science, history, and philosophy. Those are very open areas for Nsf-Grfp. However, you need to very much make sure that there's a clear connection between science, between STEM and history. So the history of science, the philosophy of science, public policy or political science as it relates to science. And STEM education, which includes computational intensive research, engineering education, science education, technology education. And as I mentioned, I will be putting this up on our website and you'll receive this by email, as well as this is all found on the NSF's website. Who isn't supported? Students who are in joint professional degree programs, such as a JD, PhD, or MBA, PhD, business administration or management degrees, MBA and such, not considered. Counseling, social work, history, except for the history of science, philosophy, except for the philosophy of science, education, except for STEM education, STEM education policy, educational psychology as it relates to STEM education, etc. Those are relevant areas. Research with disease-related goals and less biomedical engineering. The NSF is a government-funded program, very similar to its sister program, the NIH, which does focus on disease-related goals. So that is not to say that your research cannot have a disease-related component to it, but you want to emphasize that as not the primary goal outcome, but a more prominent scientific goal not related to disease. But you can absolutely have disease application of your science. Clinical research, such as patient-oriented research, epidemiology, outcomes research, health service research, that'd be more NIH rather than NSF. Also including that is pharmacological and behavioral interventions for disease, disorder prevention, prophylaxis, diagnosis, therapy, and treatment. That would be more appropriate with NSF or the NIH, National Institute of Health. The application does include three primary components that you will want to now focus on between now and the October deadlines. Transcripts. This is going to be something that you need to provide for all degree granting institutions that you've attended. So if you attended a community college for 1 year, but you did not graduate from there, transcripts will be needed. If you took some time off between undergrad and grad school and you took some non-matriculated courses to help bolster your application for grad school, you'll want to include those as well, even if a degree was not attained or you were not in a degree seeking program. There are two primary statements that you will need, the personal statement and the research plan statement, and we'll go into that in depth. Reference letters, 2 are required, but recommended that you submit 3. You can enter in a ranked order up to 5 names for letters of recommendation, and some students will put in 5 people just in case one does not pan out or such, just to make sure that you do still get the minimum of 2 letters of recommendation. An application without 2 completed letters of recommendation submitted on time will not be reviewed. As mentioned, the transcripts must be for all institutions that you have attended, your baccalaureate institutions, all graduate institutions that you have attended, and you'll need to list all these on your application. Must submit all degree granting institutions regardless of what the degree is in. If applying in the first semester at an institution where there's not a transcript yet, an enrollment verification form is sufficient. That is something that you can get from the Office of the Registrar. Personal statement and graduate research plans have to include in both of these different statements your broader impacts and your intellectual merit. And that not only must it be addressed, but it must be under specific headings on both of those statements. Applications missing those concepts, each with a specific heading, will not be reviewed. It will be returned to you without review. And you'll want to develop in both of these statements a consistent theme to weave together what your story is, what your research trajectory is, and your goals for your academic and career plans. In your personal statement or your personal relevant background and future goals statement, that's a lot in one statement. This is 3 pages, a maximum of 3 pages. This is where you tell your story. What motivates you? What inspires you? What drew you into your research? Why are you here today? Why are you going to be sitting in that graduate program? Tell that story. Show that you have taken initiative and you have faced challenges in education and in your life. Describe your projects, contributions, and your future goals. This does not have to be specific to the research that you're proposing in your application, but this can be what you did as an undergrad. Did you do any sort of outreach program? Did you engage in any sort of community work where there are broader impacts that are remaining today? And you'll want to, again, label your intellectual merit and broader impacts under specific headings for each of those. On your personal statement, you want to avoid narratives like, my grandmother died of cancer, so I decided to be a scientist. We see this quite a bit in not just NSF and similar prestigious fellowships, but just in scholarship and fellowship applications in general. And that's not the story that we want to hear, because that doesn't say what it is about you that further motivated you. You can say something like, my grandmother's passing of cancer piqued my curiosity in science, which led to studying chemistry, etc., etc. Whatever is unique to your story. And also talking about how disease outcomes have motivated you to pursue the Nsf-Grfp, that's fine, but you don't want it to sound like it is a disease outcome that you are looking for with your research. Again, that would sound more like an NIH rather than an NSF application. And you also want to avoid narratives like, I'm pursuing a career as a scientist, whatever type of scientist, because I want to change the world, or I want to help people. Rather say something like, I'm pursuing a career in such and such field because it combines my interests with research and innovation with these skills and these background experiences that I have had. One thing that I've experienced a lot over my years in this work is, especially with incoming freshmen, they will say, I want to be a doctor because I want to help people. That's great, but being a physician is not the only way that you can help someone. There's teachers, social workers, counselors, nurses. Arguably, the nurse does more work there to help the patient. But why? What is it about you that makes being a physician the best way for you to help people? Same thing goes for you here. If that is what is motivating you to pursue this particular path of research, why is that the best fit for you? What is that motivation? What are those experiences that have led you where you are? When we talk about your personal statement, it's not necessarily putting yourself in the mind of what they want to hear. The reviewers want to hear, they want to hear what is your unique story. So don't be bashful. Tell the story of what led you to where you are and the path you plan to pursue. Your research plan statement, this is a maximum of 2 pages. You'll want to describe your research idea, what you envision doing in the first part of graduate school, that type of research project. A brief background of the project that you are proposing. What is your approach with that? What are the methods that you are planning to utilize, and what are your predictions as far as known at this point? Describe what you expect to learn from this experience and how it will help you in your trajectory moving forward. Recognize and describe the risk involved. This is something very important in your research plan. You need to show that you accept the ownership of your research. This isn't, I'm working in a PI's lab and this is what we're doing. No, this is your research and you want to say, this is what I am doing. This is what I am pursuing. And then also accepting the risk. As we know, even as an optimist, our research will not necessarily have the outcomes that we want, or the things happen like a global health crisis pandemic might happen where we're not able to pursue our proposed research experiment. So what's your plan B? Have a plan B and talk about that. Evidence of how you think, why you're using the methods that you're using, why you are approaching your research project and your graduate research plan in this particular way. You want this to be clear and well-designed and concise. Label your research plans, intellectual merits, and broader impacts. Your personal statement as well as your research statement needs to be something that, yes, a scientist will be able to understand, because there will be a panel of scientists, not necessarily in your specific area of research, but more broadly, who will be reviewing your application. They don't want jargon-heavy applications. They want something that handing this off to a friend, a classmate, someone who's not in your area of study, they can read your research plan and have a general idea of what you're doing. You don't want to be speaking over the average person on the street. You want to be able to take your research and be able to give your elevator speech, so to say, in a way that is concise for whomever the reader will be. Intellectual merit and broader impacts. Intellectual merit is what is your potential to advance knowledge. And this is where you'll discuss how your research project will advance whatever it is you are researching and discovering and understanding in your field, and as well as across other disciplines. There's an interdisciplinary aspect to your research. This is where you will talk about that, how you will hone that collaboration and how your research will impact that. This is something that with particularly fellowship applications like this, students hit this pretty well. They understand, I need to talk about my research and how this is going to impact future research, how science and the advance of knowledge is going to impact science and further advances of knowledge. But it's the broader impacts where students oftentimes have their struggle. This is where you discuss the potential to impact society and contribute beyond specific advances of knowledge, but specific societal outcomes. So it's not just, I'm going to take this research, I'm going to publish it. This could really break through XYZ to allow future scientists to continue down this route or continue my research down this route. How will, let's say you're doing your research in the Salt Lake City community, how will your research help the community? What is that direct outside the door of academia goal? What are those outcomes? You'll want to discuss this here. Both intellectual merit must be reflected in both application statements with specific heading labels. And I'm really emphasizing the specific headers on both statements because it is very important. No header, no review. So here's a bit of a matrix of the intellectual merit and broader impacts between your two statements. I'm going to go over this pretty quickly here. With intellectual merit, for you, i.e. your personal statement, this is where you describe your motivation, your ability, your research experience, your preparation to conduct the research that you are proposing, your achievements, your perseverance, and your future goals, scholarly, professionally. When it comes to those goals, do you plan to pursue academia? Talk about those goals. Are you planning to go into industry? Talk about those goals. If you're not sure and both are viable options, talk about what you are considering. Then there is your research plan. The intellectual merits is the merit of your topic. The innovation, this is where you'll talk about what you hope to achieve. The rigor, the creative, the new knowledge that you will be creating. Now, for the broader impacts on your personal statement, this is where you talk about what your particular background is, what your personal story is, how you've broadened participation in different things that you've done as an undergrad, for example, or any gap that you had between undergrad and graduate school. your initiative, your leadership, and the ways that you have communicated science. I mentioned leadership very importantly. It's not just you and the science that you are pursuing, the research you are conducting that the NSF will be funding. It is you as a leader. The Nsf-Grfp does have a strong connection with leaders in science, something close to 36, 39 Nobel laureates were all Nsf-Grfps about 30 years prior to getting the Nobel Prize in their respective field, as well as other leaders out there. So this is the path that you could be going down. Talk about your leadership potential. Then relating to your work, i.e. your research plan, talk about the impact of what you have done already. Describe the foundational nature and relevance and importance to society of the work that you have done and the work you will be doing, and the connections of your research across disciplines. Your intellectual merits and your broader impacts are not just about the research you're proposing and moving forward, it's about your past as well. So talk about your intellectual merits and your broader impacts in relation to you, your past, your present, your future. Some advice on these statements. The Nsf-Grfp is not, as I mentioned, we're not just looking for scientists or looking for leaders. Show your potential. Show that you're a self-starter, that you have the capability to take initiative and build a community in collaboration. Be yourself. Be yourself. It's very important to show who you are here and convey that in the narrative. The potential of an individual is elevated, not just the research. And use scientific terms, absolutely, but do not be too jargon heavy. Reviewers will not necessarily be an expert in your specific. Reference letters, as mentioned, 2 are required, 3 are recommended. Anything 1 or fewer, 0 or 1 letters of recommendation, application will be returned to you, not reviewed. References must be from non-family members, preferably from professors and researchers that you have collaborated with, professors that you've studied under, professors and researchers that you've done research with, you've worked in a lab, etc. And if the reference writer is from industry, some of you may have industry experience, and that experience in industry could be a really compelling and motivating factor in why you're in graduate school now, why you're pursuing your research. It's absolutely acceptable to have someone from industry write a letter of recommendation, but you'll want to coach them on what the Nsf-Grfp is and what the purpose of that letter is. Reference letters need to be what some will call a walk on water letter. Why are you spectacular in relation to science and the research that you are proposing? What is magnificent and fantastic about you and your past that has prepared you for where you are? Especially with industry, it's not a letter that's helping you get into school or get another job or such, where those sorts of letters of recommendation might be something that they're more familiar with. But this is to propose your research and your leadership potential. Formatting, very, very important. Formatting's off, your application will not be reviewed. You will want to use standard 8.5 by 11 page size, 11-point font or higher, no smaller, except text as part of an image. You'll want to use Times New Roman for the body of your text, Cambria Math for equations, and symbols, the symbol font for non-alphanumeric characters. It is recommended that if you have equations and symbols, to use that as an image. You can include images when it is relevant and necessary for what you are illustrating. And particularly with equations and non-alphanumeric characters, images can be very helpful with that. You'll use 1-inch margins on all sides, and there's no text inside the margins, no headers, no footers, no name, no title, no page numbers, etc. No less than single spacing. So you don't want to use spacing options such as exactly 11 point that are less than single spaced. And then PDF format only. You will not be uploading in Word or other document formats, only in PDF. So some important considerations for you as you embark on this path. The NSF is looking to fund you, not your research team, not your PI, not your institution, but you. You need previous research experience and evidence of that research productivity, absolutely. And you need a strong GPA. When you consider your outreach goals, attract a diverse and qualified applicant pool, or that's what the NSF's goal is here, pardon. So if you have attended an MSI, a minority serving institution, or you're planning to for your graduate program, talk about that. That is part of the NSF's outreach goal here. If you are from an EPSCOR jurisdiction, talk about that. If you are a non-traditional student, talk about that as well. And some notes on that. So EPSCOR, which you might not have heard of, this is part of the Nsf-Grfp's or the NSF's outreach initiative here. This is an established program to stimulate competitive research in specific territories and states. If you are from one of these areas or completed your undergraduate or you're considering a graduate program in an EPSCOR jurisdiction, you'll want to talk about that, how that locale may have impacted your trajectory, whether it's growing up as an undergrad, how that locale has impacted you pursuing science, etc. And these are the different EPSCOR jurisdictions: Alabama, Arkansas, Delaware, Guam, Hawaii, Idaho, Iowa, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maine, Mississippi, Montana, Nebraska, Nevada, New Hampshire, New Mexico, North Dakota, Oklahoma, Puerto Rico, Rhode Island, South Carolina, South Dakota, the United States Virgin Islands, Vermont, West Virginia, and Wyoming. Non-traditional students, please apply. If you are a non-traditional student, you are just as welcome and considered equally as other students are who are on a more traditional track. If in your narrative, you'll want to discuss the why. Why are you returning to school? Why now? Why grad school in this particular area? And what was your motivation to take that very big step of, as a non-traditional student, returning to the classroom? And if you did anything during that time that you were away, which again leads into these why questions, what was that? What was that motivation? Such as, did you work in industry? Talk about that. Tell your story. Some common weaknesses in GRFP applications. Firstly and foremostly, an unorganized personal statement that does not tell a clear story. You want to have a clear, concise story that is themed. That theme is carried between your two statements. A research statement that is unclear or incomplete or unpolished. Too much or too little detail. Failure to own your research. This isn't your PI's research. This is not your institution's research. This is your research. And lacking recognition of any potential research risks. Risks are a part of research, so talk about that and own them. Dense writing that is too difficult to understand or is uninteresting, too much jargon. Again, between these, if the average person in your social circle, if a parent, a sibling, a classmate, or including people outside of your area of research, if they can't read your personal statement and your graduate research plan statement and have a clear, concise idea of what you're saying, you might want to readdress the density of your writing and the jargon that you are including there. And then, of course, your failure to address your broader impacts. As I mentioned, intellectual merit is something that you're going to talk about, that we're more programmed with research to talk about the intellectual merit. So broader impacts is what sometimes applicants miss the boat on. So you want to make sure that those are very strong and very concise. What can you do now? It is, well, today's June 1st. Happy June 1st. What can you do now between today and October deadlines? Read the 2022 solicitation on the NSF's website. This will go into what the GRFP is this year, what this year's application will require of you into very finite detail. Make a plan between today and October. start working on your statements, and then have time for drafting and rewriting and proofreading and such. Time that you are spending with your faculty advisor. Move any ongoing research projects along. If you have anything sitting in the pipeline that would be helpful for you to talk about that. Work on those now as well. Finish any pending articles and get those submitted. Thematically organize your personal statement and begin drafting your statements early. We recommend you spend 6 months, 3 to 6 months working on your GRFP application. It's not because it takes 3 months to write that, but you want to give yourself the time to address your writing without feeling stressed or pressured. So begin drafting those statements early, go through multiple drafts, have your faculty mentor and peers provide feedback, and have outside reviewers as well. Also, as you are looking at grad school or preparing for grad school, if you are not already in graduate school, this is your opportunity to talk to who could be your faculty mentor moving forward. Sometimes when you reach out to someone and say, hey, I am pursuing an Nsf-Grfp, and I have some questions on this, would you look over my research plan? Would you look over my personal statements? That can be very helpful, and faculty are often, even if you're not in their program yet, they're very keen to help you out, especially if you're going to be potentially studying in their program. But before you submit, create your FastLane account early. FastLane is the online module that you will put your application into. And then if you are awarded the Nsf-Grfp, that's where you'll accept the award and make your annual declarations and upload your annual activity report. Make sure that your formatting is correct. Proofread to make sure each statement has the required elements. Make sure each upload is correct. Sometimes a student might upload transcripts multiple times, and they'll upload transcripts as a personal statement, and the personal statement will be missing. Make sure that your reference writers have been acquainted with the Nsf-Grfp and they are aware of the deadlines. So you as an applicant will have rolling deadlines depending on which area. If you're social science, life science, psychology, engineering, it'll be a different day in October. And then your letter writers will generally have another week. But you'll want to visit the solicitation for those specifics as they are relevant to you, and then also communicate that with your reference writer. And then also, of course, do not wait until 4:55 p.m. for a 5 p.m. deadline, because things do happen. Computers freeze, Wi-Fi goes down. So don't start 5, 10, 15 minutes before the deadline. Don't wait that long. Start at least 5 hours earlier, or you can also submit weeks before as well. Now, so for some frequently asked questions with the GRFP. How many times can I apply? As an undergraduate, you have no restriction in the number of applications prior to being enrolled in a graduate program. Graduate students, once you are in graduate school, you can apply once. And then students who are in a bachelor to master's joint program can apply once. The solicitation, especially for the bachelor to master's programs, the solicitation will have some specific guidance on that. I'm starting graduate school this fall, but I've taken a year of non-matriculated courses. Does this count as my time in graduate school? No, the NSF will not count time in, will only count time in degree-seeking graduate programs. So if you took courses here and there as you return to school, if you're a returning student, or if you took some graduate courses here and there to help bolster your application for graduate school, those do not count because they're not in a degree-seeking graduate program. I'm applying as a current student. Is it more important for me to reflect on my graduate experience, my 1 year of graduate school, rather than my undergraduate experience? Is there a secret formula? No, there is not a secret formula of what is best to focus on, undergrad experience versus graduate experience. The secret formula is what is best for your story. Tell your story. If one is more important than the other, focus on that. But chances are both are going to be a relevant point of conversation in your writing. I'm in the first year of a PhD program, but previously earned a master's. Am I eligible? Generally speaking, no. Having a master's already and then pursuing another degree can make you ineligible. So that is having a master's earned at the time of application. So if you are currently in a master's program and you have not graduated and you're pursuing a PhD, you are eligible for that. But then also, if the program that you are approaching is recommended for you to pursue a master's instead of a PhD, so master's and then a PhD, or in some areas of study at certain institutions, like psychology as an example, before pursuing the psychology doctoral degree, you need to have that master's degree. You'll want to mention that in your statements of why you're pursuing a master's degree or why you're applying as a master's student. However, if you have earned a master's degree, any master's, and you are pursuing the GRFP and a doctoral degree after 2 or more years, then you would be eligible. So graduate education and your one go of applying as a graduate student, you can apply again, or you can be eligible as long as you've had a significant break between point A and point B. That significant break is defined as 2 years continuously or more. Are there citizenship requirements? Yes, applicants must be US citizens or permanent residents. Unfortunately, international students are not considered at this time. Can I apply for the GRFP if I'm planning to attend a foreign institution? No, you must be attending a United States institution of higher learning. So you must be in the United States for your education. This does not mean that your research might take place out of the country. If you are, let's say, anthropology, for example, and your anthropological research site is internationally, you can still absolutely have that component in there. It's just your institution that you're earning your degree from needs to be in the United States. I'm applying as an undergraduate, and I'm not sure where I'll be attending graduate school next year. Will this be a problem? No, it will not be a problem. The NSF understands that applicants, particularly undergrad applicants, might not have your plans settled, and you might still be in the admissions process with a number of institutions. Additionally, you're not bound to remain at the same institution. I know I mentioned this before, but it's important to repeat as well. The Nsf-Grfp is 5 years, 3 years of which have hard funding on that. You are not bound to be at that institution where you start for all 5 years. We do have students that it is not highly common, but is also not uncommon to go from one institution to another. As you get more finitely into your research, you might find that there is a faculty mentor at another institution that is more specialized and has a higher level of expertise in your specific area of research, and you may choose to transfer into that program. Perfectly acceptable. The only disqualifying change that you might have here is if you go from one program to another, especially if it's from a research-based program into a professional program. At that point, you'd want to reach out to your school's coordinating official and have a conversation with them specifically at that point in time. I'm not planning to attend an Ivy League or an elite university. Will I have a chance? Absolutely. The NSF does value diversity among where their fellows and their research money is. So there's no special privilege given to students attending certain institutions like an Ivy League or an elite institution. The NSF is not elitist. So particularly in that diversity, if you are attending a minority serving institution, great. You have a great chance. If you are coming from an EPSCOR territory or will be studying in an EPSCOR territory, that's great. You don't have to be attending an Ivy League institution, but the institution that's best for you. Should we be including math, figures, and pictures in the research plan? If math, figures, and pictures are helpful for you in how you explain your research that you are proposing, you are welcome to include them. A quick note on that, as mentioned on the formatting slide, the NSF does recommend that if you are using mathematical equations and symbols, non-alphanumeric language, to include that in a figure rather than in the text. And that is perfectly acceptable. I've worked on papers not ready for publication. Will this be a problem? Publications can absolutely help bolster your application, but by no means are they required. So if you are applying without any publications, that's fine. Do not let that hold you back from applying. I've worked in industry before heading to graduate school. Can an industry professional write a letter of recommendation? Yes, absolutely. You just need to make sure that they understand what the GRFP is. You want to take the time to talk to them about that, and particularly what the goals of the Nsf-Grfp are, so that they are writing their letter accordingly, rather than writing it as if helping you get a job or such. When are the applications due? Applications are due in October on a rolling deadline, depending on which area your application falls: life science, chemistry, math, etc. When will the applicants be notified of the results? Results will be announced in the following April. Sometimes usually it's the beginning of April. There have been some years where it's the last week of March, but the NSF officially says sometime during the month of April. So we do have 3 upcoming workshops to help you with your application. The next will be on June 22nd, 10 a.m., writing personal statements. June 23rd or 29th, articulating broader impacts, and July 6th, crafting graduate research plans. So if we invite you to attend these, you should have the Zoom information already from registering for this workshop. Using the time between now and the end of June to kind of consider what you might want to include in your statements, what you want to talk about. You're mapping out your trajectory. That will help you prepare for the next workshops. Of course, all workshops will be recorded for you to refer back to, or if you're not able to make it to one or another, you can still be able to get that information as well. One question that I know I will get eventually is, I found from this presentation that I'm not necessarily eligible for the Nsf-Grfp, but can I come to the writing personal statements workshop, or the broader impact workshop, or the research plans workshop? Absolutely. If you are not pursuing the GRFP, or you might not be pursuing the GRFP this year, feel free to come to the workshops if they are helpful for you in pursuing other funding as well. And as always, I do want to note, if you have any questions whatsoever, please do not hesitate to reach out to me in the University of Utah Graduate School. I can be contacted best by email at fellowships@gradschool.utah.edu. I do provide one-on-one advisement. So if you'd like to meet to go over your application or get some feedback on your writing, or how you can pursue various opportunities, feel free to reach out to me and we can set up an appointment. Okay, so I will now stop our share. And the time is now yours. If you have any particular questions that you'd like to bring up, you can use the raise your hand feature and then unmute yourself, or you can include your question in the chat box, either in general or to me privately, and we can go from there. If I will be an incoming first-year graduate student this fall, would you recommend that I wait to apply until my second year? Really depends on what is going to be best for you. Talk to your faculty mentor to see what they feel is going to be the strongest for you as it relates to who you are as a scholar and a researcher. It may be good to get an additional year of school, of GPA and such before you apply. It might be advantageous for you to apply right now. One thing that I will note when it comes to the timing of this is you are going to be reviewed in comparison to your peers. So if you are a second year, you will be reviewed in comparison to other second years. If you are a rising undergraduate, if you are going into your senior year preparing for grad school next year, you're going to be reviewed compared to other seniors in that same position. So the more training you have, the heightened bar there will be for your review, so to say. But you want to do what is best for you, and your faculty mentor would be the best place to start with that question. Okay, Connor, you're up.
Yeah, I have an eligibility question. I haven't really get a straight answer on this one. I started a master's program in January of 2021. And then by fall of 2021, I transferred into a PhD program with a different lab. And so would I still be with like my first year of my PhD, having started a master's earlier and changed programs?
And so it was January of this year?
No, so it was, I guess, spring of 2021, I started a master's. And then fall of 2021, I changed to a PhD program.
Okay, so that will count as graduate school time. So I would say this fall is your last chance to apply to the program. So even though you changed programs from a master's to PhD, the master's was a degree seeking program, so that does count.
But I'm still eligible for this fall. Oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Other questions or concerns? Okay, I'll go ahead and stop our recording now. And I